They say rock bottom is where you finally stop falling, but no one tells you that sometimes it's a place you start to dig. I remember the sound of the lighter more than the voices that begged me to stop. That click was my prayer, my heartbeat, my coffin. What if your escape became your prison? What if every rush you chased stole one more piece of who you were supposed to be? The nights blurred into days, and the mirror stopped showing a face. Just a ghost trying to stay high enough to forget he was dying. I lost count of the lies, the burns, the empty bottles, the people who turned their backs. Maybe they were right to. Because when the lights went out that winter night, I wasn't sure if I wanted to wake up. But I did. And that was the cruelest part, surviving when you've already buried yourself. Would you forgive yourself if no one else did? Morning always came too bright for the kind of nights I lived. The sun felt like judgment, pouring through the blinds onto a life I no longer recognized. My phone was full of missed calls, but no one I could call back. I used to have plans. College? A career? Low? Now I just had hours to survive. The city outside my window moved on without me. People laughing, driving, living. I hated them for that. Every sound was a reminder that I didn't belong in the world anymore. I told myself I could quit anytime, that tomorrow would be different. But tomorrow never showed up. Just more promises whispered into smoke. And somewhere under all that noise, a part of me still begged to be found. The worst part wasn't the drugs. It was the silence after they wore off. That moment when the rush faded and the world came flooding back. Raw, cold, and cruelly clear. My heart raced for reasons that had nothing to do with meth, and everything to do with regret. I thought about my mom's kitchen, the smell of cinnamon coffee, the sound of laughter that used to live there. I thought about Lydia's voice on the other side of the door, crying, begging. But those memories hurt worse than withdrawal. So I lit up again just to make them disappear. That's the lie no one tells you. That sometimes you get high just to stop remembering who you used to be. By the time I realized how far I'd fallen, I was already buried beneath it. My landlord had changed the locks, and my car had been towed months ago. I walked everywhere, pockets empty, heart emptier. Every alley had a memory, every corner a ghost. I told people I was fine. Addicts get good at lying, especially to themselves. I'd see my reflection in store windows and barely recognize the man staring back. He looked like me, but not really. More like the echo of someone who used to matter. Somewhere deep down, I knew this couldn't last. Something was coming, and it wouldn't be kind. It happened one night when the city felt too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I was alone, pacing the room, chasing a high that wouldn't come. My body shook, my mind spun, and for the first time I felt afraid, not of dying, but of being forgotten. I looked around at the wreckage of my life and realized I'd built my own prison. Every lie, every fix, every burned bridge was another bar. I dropped to my knees, crying without sound, because I didn't know how to ask for help anymore. Maybe this was it. Maybe this was the bottom everyone talked about. Or maybe it was just another night in hell. They say you don't remember the moment you die, but I remember mine. I woke up on a bathroom floor, my skin cold, my heart barely there, the air too heavy to breathe. The walls were closing in, whispering all the things I tried to forget. I saw flashes. Lydia's face, Mom's, tears, the boy I used to be. My veins screamed for another hit. But even the drug had turned its back on me. That's when I saw it. The needle rolling slowly toward the drain, like even it was done with me. I wanted to reach for it, but I couldn't move. The sound of the door crashing open came next, and her voice, Lydia's voice, calling my name. I'd been found, but I wasn't sure that was a good thing. The ambulance siren sounded like forgiveness I didn't deserve. I remember Lydia's hand gripping mine, her words breaking between sobs. "Don't you dare leave me again." I wanted to tell her I was already gone, that the brother she loved had died a long time ago, but her voice anchored me to something I hadn't felt in years. A reason to stay. Every bump of the road rattled through my bones. Every flash of red light felt like judgment. I tried to close my eyes, but behind them were memories too heavy to hold. I realized then that dying was easy. Living with what I'd done, that was the real punishment. When I opened my eyes again, the room was white. Too white. The kind of clean that makes you aware of how dirty you are inside. I could hear machines breathing for me, could smell disinfectant and regret. Lydia was asleep in the chair beside me, her hand still wrapped around mine. For the first time in years, I saw her not as the sister I'd failed, but as the only person who hadn't given up. I wanted to say something, but my throat burned with every word I couldn't find. A nurse came in, smiled softly, and said, "You're lucky." I turned my head away. Luck didn't save me. Her love did. The doctor said the word rehab, like it was a sentence, not a chance. I laughed. A dry, bitter sound that scared even me. Rehab wasn't for people like me. It was for people who still believed in themselves. But Lydia didn't give me a choice. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "If you don't go, I'll bury you next time." That hit harder than any drug ever did. So I went. Not because I believed I could change, but because I couldn't stand to see her cry anymore. The drive there felt endless, and every mile away from the city felt like a funeral for the person I'd been. The gates closed behind me with a sound I'll never forget. Heavy, final. Like the world sealing me off from itself. Inside, everything smelled of bleach and lost souls. Men with tired eyes sat in circles, their stories bleeding into one another. I felt like an imposter, like I didn't belong even among the broken. Then she walked in, Dr. Maya Torres. Her voice was calm, steady, the kind of voice that didn't flinch when people talked about hell. She said, "Here, we don't punish pain. We learn from it." I didn't believe her. But somewhere deep inside, I wanted to. Maybe that's where healing starts. Not in faith, but in the tiny crack where disbelief begins to fade. Rehab wasn't a place. It was a mirror. Every word, every silence showed me what I'd become. The first nights were the worst. My body shook, my mind screamed, and sleep refused to visit. I'd trade one craving for another. Food, cigarettes, anger, anything to drown the ache. Dr. Torres told me pain was proof that I was still alive. I hated her for that, but she kept showing up every morning, calm as sunrise. "You're not your addiction," she said once, looking straight through my excuses. "You're what you decide to do after it." I didn't answer her, but something inside me started to stir. Maybe I wasn't beyond saving. Maybe I just didn't know how to be saved yet. Days blurred into weeks. I learned the rhythm of rehab. The meetings, the chores, the endless coffee, the heavy truths. Derek, my roommate, cracked jokes that made everyone forget they were broken, even if just for a minute. "We're like a bunch of crashed cars," he'd say, "but at least we're in the shop." I laughed for the first time in months. I didn't trust the sound. It felt foreign, fragile. But it was real. Every day, I told my story, piece by painful piece, until it stopped feeling like a confession and started sounding like a warning. The more I talked, the less power the darkness had. For the first time, I started to believe I might make it out alive. Some nights I'd walk the courtyard alone, under the weak glow of the lamps. The air was clean, sharp, too honest. I used to chase numbness, but now I was feeling everything. Regret, guilt, fear. It was overwhelming. I wanted to run, but something kept me still. Maybe the way the night felt like a blank page. I thought about all the people I'd hurt, the promises I'd broken. I couldn't fix the past, but maybe I could stop it from owning me. I whispered a promise into the cold air. I won't die this way. For the first time, I meant it. Dr. Torres asked me to write a letter to myself. Not the addict, but the boy before it all fell apart. I stared at the paper for an hour before I could write a single word. When I finally did, the ink bled like a wound reopening. I'm sorry, I wrote, for forgetting you. I wrote about dreams, laughter, and the people I'd pushed away. By the end, my hands were shaking, tears soaking the page. She told me to keep it, to read it whenever I forgot why I was fighting. I folded it up and tucked it into my pocket. That letter became my heartbeat, a reminder that the boy I was hadn't completely disappeared. He was just waiting for me to come back. It wasn't a single moment that changed me. It was 100 small ones. The day I ate breakfast without shaking. The night I fell asleep without fear. The morning I looked in the mirror and saw something close to peace. Derek relapsed and disappeared, and it broke me in ways I didn't expect. I realized then recovery wasn't a finish line. It was a war you fought every day. But I wasn't fighting alone anymore. When I walked into group that morning, I told them I was grateful. For the pain, for the fight, for another chance to try. And for the first time, I didn't just say it. I believed it. Leaving rehab felt like stepping out of a dream and into a storm. The air was different. Too loud, too fast, too real. Everyone talks about getting clean, like it's the hard part. It's not. The hard part is living after. The world didn't wait for me. My name still meant junkie. My face still carried the story of my failures. Lydia hugged me at the gate, but I saw the hesitation in her eyes. She wanted to believe I was different. I wanted to believe it too. But deep down, we both knew. Recovery isn't trust rebuilt overnight. It's trust earned in silence, one honest day at a time. The halfway house was quiet, too quiet. A thin mattress, a shared bathroom, curfews that made me feel like a child again. But it was freedom, and I wasn't about to waste it. I got a job washing dishes at a diner downtown. The pay was low, the hours long, but the smell of coffee and soap was better than smoke and sweat. I'd stand at the sink, watching the city lights outside the window, wondering if my mother ever thought about me at night. I didn't call her yet. I couldn't. Some things take longer to rebuild than others, but for the first time I wasn't running. I was earning my way back. Every evening after work, I'd sit in the common room and use the old computer nobody touched. It was slow, but it gave me something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. I started sketching ideas for a business, something that could help people like me find jobs after rehab. I called it Second Step. I didn't know how to build a company or even where to start, but I knew how it felt to be invisible. Maybe that was enough. Dr. Torres always said pain can either chain you or change you. I was finally ready to choose change. The dream was small then, just a few lines on a screen, but it felt like hope taking shape. When I finally called Mom, she didn't answer at first. I almost hung up, but then her voice came through. Soft, uncertain, older than I remembered. There was a long silence before she said, "Are you okay?" I wanted to say yes, but I couldn't lie anymore. "Not yet," I told her, "but I'm trying." She didn't speak again for a while, just breathed, and I realized that was enough. Forgiveness doesn't come with words. It comes with presence, even through a phone line. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the phone long after the call ended, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Weeks turned into months. I saved every dollar I could, skipped the bus to walk to work, ate simple meals. The guys at the diner started calling me college boy because I spent my breaks reading business guides I borrowed from the library. I didn't tell them I barely finished high school. One night, Lydia visited, holding a folder full of resumes from people leaving rehab. "They need someone to believe in them," she said. I looked at her, and for the first time, I saw belief reflected back. Not pity, not doubt, belief. That's when Second Step stopped being an idea, it became a mission. The first paycheck from Second Step wasn't much, but it felt like victory. I remember staring at the number, thinking, I made this with my own 2 hands, without running, without lying, without hiding. Every resume we helped, every interview scheduled, every call I made for a recovering addict was a brick in a wall I was rebuilding. Not just for them, but for me. Some days fear still whispered I'd fail, that the old cravings would win. But then I'd look at Lydia's smile or Dr. Torres' quiet nod, and I'd remember. Survival isn't about escaping pain. It's about creating something stronger than it. Growth isn't linear. Some mornings, I woke up grateful. Others, I stared at the ceiling, replaying failures, wondering if I was enough. One day, a former addict called to thank me. She had her first interview in years. Her voice cracked as she said, "You believed in me when no one else did." I hung up and let the tears come. That's when I understood. This wasn't just a business. It was redemption. Each life we touched was a reflection of the life I was finally choosing to live. Slowly, I stopped being the man I feared and started being the man I wanted to be. Mom came to visit once, silently watching me organize the office. I hadn't seen her without judgment or worry in years. She didn't say much at first. She just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes softening. I realized then that trust isn't rebuilt in words. It's built in actions. Every late night working, every resume filed, every life touched was a testament that I could be different. Slowly, I saw her smile for the first time in a decade, small and hesitant, but real. That smile reminded me why I kept going when giving up was easier. Success brought new challenges. Investors called, deadlines loomed, and every mistake felt catastrophic. I was learning leadership, patience, and forgiveness. Not just for my employees, but for myself. One evening, I caught Derek's name in an old rehab folder and felt the pang of loss. He had relapsed again and was gone. It reminded me that survival isn't a guarantee. Just a choice repeated every day. I took a deep breath and kept building. Because every day I chose recovery, every day I chose purpose, I honored the second chance I'd been given. By the end of the year, Second Step had helped dozens of people find stable work. I stood in the small office with my team, watching them laugh, argue, and plan. I felt a rush of pride I hadn't known I deserved. Recovery wasn't a destination, it was a living, breathing thing. I had survived, yes, but I had also built something beyond survival. Hope. The boy I had once thought lost was standing in front of me, alive in every choice I made, every life I touched, every bridge I was rebuilding. And for the first time, I believed I could thrive, not just survive. The office had grown bigger, louder, and brighter. Second Step was no longer just a project. It was a company, a mission, a symbol. But with success came a shadow I hadn't escaped. The old cravings. Stress, deadlines, failures, and even fleeting triumphs whispered the same lie. You'll never be enough. Some nights, I stayed at my desk long after everyone left, staring at the glow of the city, wondering if the man I'd become could withstand the one I'd once been. Redemption was sweet, but it came with a cost, and the cost was constant vigilance. There were nights I walked past the bars and smelled the smoke and liquor. I felt it in my veins, the pull, the temptation. I imagined picking up the phone, calling old friends, chasing old highs. It scared me more than anything. I remembered the faces I'd hurt, the nights Lydia cried, the days I'd wasted in empty apartments. I had survived once, but survival alone wasn't enough anymore. Now, I wanted life. not just the high that numbed it. Every step past those doors was a victory, every breath free from temptation, a testament to the man I was learning to be. Investors came, competitors sneered, and the weight of responsibility became heavier than any drug ever had. I was tested every day. Deadlines, doubt, fear, the possibility of failure. And yet every challenge reminded me why I had started. I remembered Derek, gone too soon, and I remembered my promise to myself. You won't quit. You won't let the darkness win. Success didn't erase my past. It highlighted it, but it also proved something vital. Even the broken can rise. Even lost can lead. One evening, after a particularly grueling week, I found myself alone in my office, staring at the city lights, feeling the familiar itch of temptation. I closed my eyes and remembered the needle, the smoke, the loneliness that had almost killed me. And then I remembered Lydia's voice, Mom's soft question, Derek's wasted promise, and Dr. Torres' calm, unwavering stare. I opened my eyes and typed a new email to my team, to my clients, to every recovering addict who looked up to me. Keep going. You are stronger than you think. That night, I didn't just resist temptation. I turned it into fuel. I realized that temptation never truly leaves you. It only changes shape. Success, money, admiration, stress, all could become my drug if I let them. But I'd learned the difference between escape and purpose. Every email, every call, every life we touched reminded me that I wasn't defined by my past, but by my choices now. The city lights outside gleamed like a challenge and a promise. I would not fall. I would not hide. I would continue building, continuing fighting, continuing living. The man I had been might have whispered to give up, but the man I was becoming roared to rise. I stood on the stage, the spotlight burning hot, thousands of faces staring back at me. I remembered the first time I almost didn't make it out of a bathroom floor, the night I thought no one could save me. And now, here I was, alive, speaking to a crowd of people who needed to believe in themselves as much as I had needed someone to believe in me. My voice shook at first, but then steadied. You are not your addiction. You are not your past. You are what you choose to become. The words weren't just for them. They were for me, for the boy I lost, for the man I became, and for the family who never gave up. I watched my mother lean forward, a small smile breaking through years of worry and disappointment. Lydia squeezed her hand, eyes shining with tears, and I felt a weight lift from my chest. I hadn't realized I was carrying. Forgiveness isn't a single act. It's a series of moments, small, fragile, and profound. In that moment, I realized it wasn't just my life I was rebuilding. It was every life I'd touched, every person who'd been forgotten, every bridge burned that could now be repaired. Redemption wasn't a finish line. It was a journey, and I was finally walking it without fear. After the speech, people came up to shake my hand, hug me, share their stories. Some reminded me of myself, desperate, lost, afraid. And I realized that surviving wasn't enough. Living was not just breathing. Living meant helping others rise when they thought they couldn't. I walked through the crowd, every handshake and smile reinforcing a truth I'd learned over years of pain and struggle. We don't heal alone. We heal together. Later, I stood on the balcony of my office, city lights stretching endlessly below. I thought of Derek, of the nights I almost quit, of every failure that had led me here. I whispered a promise into the night. I will not forget where I came from. I will not forget the lives I touch. I will continue no matter what. The wind lifted my hair, cool against my skin, and for the first time in my life, the past didn't feel like a chain. It felt like a map, guiding me, shaping me, showing me that every broken path, could lead to somewhere beautiful. I finally understood what it meant to survive and to thrive. My family believed in me again. My company helped hundreds rebuild their lives. And most importantly, I believed in myself. Addiction had tried to define me. Failure had tried to stop me. And fear had tried to silence me. But every choice I made to keep going, to keep fighting, had shaped a life worth living. The boy who almost died was gone, but the man who rose from the ashes was here, and he would never forget the journey that brought him home.